They called it a no-fire zone, declared by the alien generals of the Council Triune and Oath's High Command, signed in polished halls of orbiting stations, where treaties floated on digital parchment and diplomats sipped glass of blue wine while quoting the cost of war in sanitized numbers. But down on the surface, on Virex 9, where the air sizzled with spores and the trees bled when you cut them, no one cared. Least of all, Captain Dax Myron. The jungle pulsed. That was the first thing you noticed. It breathed, not metaphorically, but biologically. Lush, green organs contracted underfoot with every step. The canopy above shifted like lungs inhaling acid mist. Leaves twitched like skin. Dax crouched in the shade of a massive blackroot tree, its bark crusted with parasitic thorns. His armor, scratched, dented, scorched from 5 years of Hellworld campaigns, merged into the muck. Only his left eye was visible, a cold synthetic lens that clicked and refocused silently as it scanned the alien terrain. Nothing moved. Not yet, but he felt it. Predators always wait for silence. The ceasefire came 12 hours ago. It hadn't even been a full damn day. But for Dax, it came too late. The message from High Command hadn't even reached him until after he'd already slit 2 throats and dropped a drone's payload into a pillbox housing enemy medics. Oops. War's timing was cruel like that. Still, they expected him to stop, to fall in line, to forgive. Let it go, his commander had said in the encrypted uplink. Orders from the Ark. There's going to be a new council. Amnesty for all surviving forces. Full demobilization. We're rebuilding now, Dax. Rebuilding? They expected him to rebuild after Havenspine? He could still smell the melted flesh. Still feel Sergeant Ryan's hand twitch in his own, 3 fingers fused together like wax, before the guy finally stopped breathing. Rebuilding was for people who hadn't lost everything. The wind picked up. Leaves the color of rotting gold twisted in the breeze. A distant screech echoed. One of the native tree raptors probably disemboweled something small. The trees fed on the blood. Virex 9 was alive, and it was always hungry. Dax moved again, fluid, quiet, the way only someone trained to kill in 27 gravity wells could. He stepped over a tangle of moss-covered bones. Human bones. Charred, cracked, stripped of gear. All dead. The war had marched through here a month ago, left this patch untouched since. Now, all that remained were ghosts and whispers. And Dax, he wasn't alone. The ping came soft through his helmet, a flicker of motion across his eye lens. Thermal trace. Tall, thin, moving fast between the fungus trees. Heat signature red alien. Not soldier. No armor plating. No heavy packs. Civilians? Oh, what passed for civilians on this death world? He watched them from behind a cluster of fungi that pulsed with dim bioluminescence. 4 of them, live bodies, cloaked in optic-shifting fabric that camouflaged almost perfectly with the terrain. 1 carried a satchel. Another limped. No visible weapons. He could let them pass. The treaty said he should. But treaties didn't bring back Ryan. Or Lorna. Or the 83 colonists melted alive in their bunkers when the Ilari A-ships rained sunfire down on Havenspine Station. These weren't soldiers, but they were Ilari, and that was enough. He pulled his rifle off his back. Target acquired. No fire zone in effect. Firing lock engaged. Command override code required. He didn't hesitate. Override code, Dax Delta 88 Grim. The rifle's safety flick green. Dax aimed at the rear figure, the one limping. Less likely to dodge. Less likely to scream and warn the others. He squeezed the trigger. The jungle lit up like lightning cracked the sky. The round punched through the Ilari's back and out the chest. A burst of violet mist exploded from a wound. The figure staggered, made a sound like a broken reed, and collapsed into the moss. The others turned and saw him. Panic. Not confusion. Panic. That meant they weren't civilians. Civilians scream. These ones didn't. They ran. Dax was already moving. He sprinted low, weaving between vines, past hissing plants that spat irritants into the air. The rifle hissed as he fired again. Once. Twice. Each shot punching another Ilari into the ground. The last one vanished behind a stone column, etched with their strange, looping script. It screamed something in their tongue, a warning, A curse, maybe a prayer. Dax rolled behind a stump, popped a fresh mag, and circled. No mercy. He found the last one cradling the wounded body of the first, the limp one he shot. Its cloaking shimmered uselessly, flickering like a dying signal. No, it said, in halting Earth tongue. Treaty, we have no weapons. Dax stared at it, then pointed his rifle at the face. No survivors, he muttered. One more shot. Violet blood painted the stone. He crouched over the bodies. Searched the satchel. No weapons. No explosives. Just coded documents, gene maps, and medical records. A list of evacuees. Names. Children's names. He stared at the datapad. His eye twitched. Then he dropped it into the mud and crushed it under his boot. He stayed there for a long time, squatting in silence. The jungle buzzed louder now. Flies, spores, rut. The alien corpses leaked color into the ground. The trees twitched, hungry for the scent. Somewhere overhead, the drones circled, their peacekeeping lenses recording his every move. He knew they were watching. Let them watch. Hours later, a voice crackled through his comms again. Admiral Keen's voice. Dax, you were seen. The Ark has the footage. We need you to stand down. Turn yourself in. A tribunal is being prepared. Dax said nothing. The line hissed. You're not helping the cause, son. This isn't justice anymore. It's vengeance. You're out of line. Still, he said nothing. Keen's voice dropped. Please, Dax, we signed peace. You're making war again. Dax finally replied. Calm. Flat. I never stopped. Behind him, the jungle began to swallow the corpses. Roots shifted. Vines slithered. Soon, the Alari would be digested, fed into the soil, broken down into nutrients. Nothing left to mark them. Nothing to honor them. Just like Havenspine. And far above, in the orbiting holes of peace, the alien generals wept stars. The ghost began talking again. Dax Myron didn't believe in souls. Didn't believe in gods, spirits, or even the idea of redemption. But still, when night fell on Virex 9 and the wind sliced through the bone trees like knives through silk, he heard them. Voices, glimpses, fragments of screams caught in static. Memories that didn't stay buried. The worst ones weren't human. They were Ilari, mothers, civilians, children. He told himself they were fakes. Glitches from the neurotox in the jungle air. Artifact from his cybernetic enhancements. Hallucinations, maybe. Regret? No, not regret. He'd buried that in Havenspine. Rain started as a whisper, light, oily, almost beautiful. It glistened on the dark leaf canopy like stars bleeding through the trees. Then came the razors, sheets of metallic rainfall, microscopic shards designed by the planet itself. Nature's shrapnel, enough to shred bay flesh from bone in under a minute. Dax watched it fall from beneath a broken shelter, half a downed transport, rusted and bent, now his sanctuary. His helmet hissed a warning. Our razor storm detected. Seek shelter, flesh exposure risk, extreme. He didn't move. He liked the rain. It reminded him that the world still hated everything on it. Across the hollow, his portable drone receiver crackled. No visuals, just audio, just whispers. Sector 3 Gamma, repeating. Sector 3 Gamma, unarmed Alari convoy, medical personnel. Repeat, medical personnel. A pulse raced through his chest like a second heartbeat. He picked up the receiver, wiped the condensation from the screen, and listened again. Med evac moving through valley. Coordinates locked. Permission to engage denied by our command. Stand down. Repeat, stand down. They were out there. Another squad of Alari. Maybe more. Maybe survivors. Maybe targets. He stared at the map. Sector 3 Gamma was a depression west of the Fungal Cliffs. Terrain so unstable even the predators avoided it. A good place to hide. Or to die. Either worked for him. He rose, slid the receiver into his belt, checked his mags. 3 full, 1 half empty. His knife, still slick with violet blood, was sheathed at his hip. He whispered to himself, "Let's see what mercy looks like, in pieces." Then he stepped out into the storm. His armor hissed, a shield of electromagnetic fields activating instantly. Rays of rain bounced off the invisible shell, turning into harmless sparks around him. He moved fast, downhill, boots silent, a phantom in a world of metal rain and bleeding light. He hit the edge of 3 Gamma within an hour, and paused, because it wasn't empty. Below him, the valley flickered with movement. Dozens of forms, some tall and gliding, others hunched and carrying crates. Makeshift tents. White flags made of Ilari silk, glimmering like starlight. A mobile med station. Not soldiers, not armor, not guns. He saw nurses, drones, cradles, children. He locked in. Targeting override engaged. No weapon zone detected. Firing lock active. Override code required. His finger hovered over the trigger, but the rain shifted. A flurry of storm-blown debris flung across the valley. A crackle of comms pierced his helmet. Dax, for God's sake, if you're still out there, turn back. It's Admiral Keen. We know you're tracking the convoy. The war's over. You're hunting medics now? Babies, Dax. He didn't respond. He turned off the comm channel. Mercy had no place in his hunt. He moved down the slope like a whisper between thunderclaps. At the edge of the camp, a nurse turned, tall, Ilari, markings of peace tattooed in blue across her cheek. Their eyes met. She raised her hand slowly. No weapon. Please, she said. He shot her in the throat. Chaos erupted. Screams. Children scattered. Drones fled like panicked birds. Crates toppled. Ilari doctors screamed for help, for sanctuary, for the generals who swore protection. Dax walked forward, rifle raised. He wasn't aiming to wound. Each round found a neck, a chest, a face. The medical tents burst into flame as he launched a microgrenade, liquid fire designed to destroy biotech. The scream of children blistered the night, but he didn't flinch. They screamed in Haven's spine, too. He found one of the nurses crawling through the muck, trying to drag a child to safety. Her leg was gone, razor shrapnel or one of his rounds. Didn't matter. He knelt beside her. The child, a small Ilari girl with glowing violet eyes, looked up at him, sobbing. The nurse whispered, voice cracked. Why? The war's over. He looked her dead in the eyes. No. Then he pulled the trigger. Twice. The fire reflected in his visor like a second sunrise. The camp burned. Bodies stacked in flickering heaps. Drones recorded everything. He knew it. Didn't care. He wanted them to see. Let the peacekeepers choke on it. Let the alien generals weep into their clean robes while watching one man destroy what they spent centuries trying to build. Let them understand what war actually costs. Later, when the valley fell silent again, Dax sat among the corpses. He removed his helmet, breathed in the stench. He expected guilt, or relief. Oh, something. Instead, he felt nothing. He stared at the girl's body. Her tiny hands curled like dead leaves. Her blood soaked into the same soil that once held his friend's bones. He looked up at the sky. The drones were still there, tiny, blinking lights, hovering just out of range. Watching, always watching. He raised his rifle and gave them a final salute, 2 fingers across his brow, then a middle finger aimed at the heavens. Peace, he muttered. Here's your peace. Meanwhile, aboard the Solitude Ark, alarms flared. Command staff watched the footage in disbelief. The Ilari delegation had gone silent. One had collapsed, sobbing. Another stayed in stunned silence, hands clenched until they bled. "He's mad," someone whispered. "He's completely gone." Admiral Keen stood at the center of the command floor, jaw clenched, fist shaking. He turned to the Human Council representative. "We let him go too far," Keen said. "No," replied the representative, with a cold voice. "We didn't let him go far enough." Back on the surface, Dax knelt before a crater full of ash and embers. His voice was raw now, but steady. He whispered the names of the dead from Haven Spine, each syllable cutting the night like a blade. Sergeant Ryan, Lorna Vale, Dr. Cruz, Leanne Carter, Milo. 83 names. He said them all. Then he stood, turned toward the north, toward the next signal, toward the final kill. The sky above Virex 9 was a graveyard of gods. Dax Myron stood alone on the black ridge, his silhouette carved in firelight and shadow. The remains of the medical convoy still burned behind him, twisted structures melting, flesh smoking in the acid wind. His rifle was slung low across his back now, its barrel scorched, its magazine half-spent. The peacekeepers had stopped broadcasting. The drones had stopped following. The comm channels had gone silent, not out of defeat, out of fear. They no longer tried to reason with him. No more pleas. No more threats. No more Dax, please come back. Only one message lingered, looping quietly in his helmet's buffer. The Ark has declared you a rogue asset. You are now being hunted. Do not resist extraction. This is your final warning. He had smiled when he first heard it, but he wasn't smiling now. He was climbing a corpse ladder of history, and at the top waited the men who'd written the rules, the ones who called it collateral, the ones who negotiated peace before they paid for the blood, the ones orbiting above, safe in their crystalline ships, the alien generals. They would weep. He would make sure of it. He headed north, through the grave forest, where the trees were actually bone and the air stank of formaldehyde, through the blistered plains, where sandstorm could strip skin in seconds and ancient artillery still fired without targets, and finally, past the shattered outposts of Vailmar, one the frontline stronghold, now nothing but rust, bones, and silence. His destination lay high in the mountains beyond. Tharsis Spire, a defunct orbital relay tower from the First War, long since abandoned, except it wasn't. Not anymore. SatEcho had picked up transmissions days ago, tight beam comms between the Ark and surface agents. Encrypted. Urgent. Dax didn't need a translator. They were moving someone important. By the time he reached the foot of the spire, the storm had broken. Lightning cracked overhead like the sky was splitting in half. Rain fell not as razors this time, but as glass, sheets of crystallized vapor that shattered into prismatic shards when they hit stone. The mountain was alive with the sound of it, a choir of breaking, glittering things. Perfect. He climbed fast, no hesitation, no gear checks, no backups. This wasn't a mission. It was a reckoning. At the summit, he found them, 4 Ilari generals. Their armor was ceremonial, polished silver woven with strands of living wire that pulsed faint blue. They stood beneath the remains of a communications dish, flanked by 2 human peace envoys and 6 fully armed Akmar guards. Dax stepped out of the fog, soaked in blood and static. No one moved. The lead general, tall and marked with gold ink sigils, spoke first. His voice echoed without tech. "Dax Myron," he said, "we know what you've done." Dax said nothing. "You've murdered the innocent, broken accords, desecrated sanctuary zones." Still, Dax said nothing. The second general stepped forward. Her eyes were opalescent, swirling with unreadable emotion. "You think this is justice?" she asked softly. Dax raised his rifle. "No," he said, "this is grief." And then he opened fire. The first 5 seconds were pure death. 2 Akmar guard dropped before they could even raise their weapons. Dax moved like a storm, emptying his clip across the platform, rounds tearing armor, shattering bones. 1 peace envoy dove for cover behind the console. The other took a round through the eye and flipped backward off the cliff. The 3rd guard raised a pulse blade and charged. Dax let the rifle drop, empty, unslung his knife in the same motion, and met the charge head-on. The blades clashed once. Then Dax drove his into the guard's gut and twisted hard. The alien shrieked, choking on violet foam, and collapsed twitching. He turned to the generals. 3 remained. The 4th lay dead, chest cavity peeled open by a scatter burst. They didn't run. They didn't beg. They stood still, like statues, like kings waiting to be executed. "You lost someone," the gold-marked general said calmly, even as blood splattered across his ceremonial robes. "This is your answer." "I lost everyone," Dax whispered. "And this is your cost. You think killing us will end your grief? No, but it'll shed." He raised his blade and slashed. The last 2 generals fought, not with weapons, but with words. As Dax approached, they activated the relay dish behind them. A signal screamed into the sky, a final data pulse, broadcasting the carnage, the footage, the final confrontation between the beast and the gods. "We're showing them what you are," one hissed. "Let the galaxy see your rot." Dax paused, and for the first time, he laughed. "You still think I care what the galaxy sees?" Then he pushed the female general backward, into the dish core. The discharge lit up the mountain like a newborn sun. Her scream was swallowed by lightning. The signal died with her. Only one general remained. Old, tall, silent. He didn't beg. He didn't fight. He just whispered, "Do you feel better now?" Dax stayed into his ancient, crystalline eyes and said, "No." Then he slit his throat. The mountain was silent now, burning, bloody. The relay dish collapsed in slow, sparking ruin. The wind wailed around the tower. The storm swallowed everything but the fire. Dax knelt in the center of the platform. His armor was cracked. His skin burned. His hands shook, coated in mixed blood, violet, red, black. He looked up at the stars. For a moment, they seemed to shimmer, as if the generals really were weeping. Far above, aboard the Ark, chaos exploded. The footage from the relay broadcast had gone system-wide. Billions were watching. Human colonies, Ilari settlements, neutral worlds. The image of Dax Myron standing on a mountain of corpses became the most shared file in galactic history. The Ark Senate chambers flooded with panicked voices. "He's a demon. He's a product of war. We made him. We have to kill him now. No, we have to listen to what he became." The room cracked in half. Ideology versus horror. Righteousness versus guilt. A whisper circled every corner of space. What if peace without justice is just silence after screaming? Back on Virex 9, Dax descended. Alone, unarmed now. He left the weapons behind on the mountain. There was no need for them anymore. He wasn't a soldier. Not anymore. He was an echo, a warning carved in blood and grief and ash. The jungle welcomed him in silence. No whispers. No ghosts. Just rain. Dax Myron had walked through fire. Through alien blood. Through orbital ash. Through screaming wire and scorched cries that would never leave his skull. Now, he walked through silence. The jungle of Virex 9 had quieted. No more whispering ghosts. No glitching comms. No phantom signal from broken satellites overhead. Just a weight of still air and the breathing shadows of trees that hadn't moved in centuries. The storm was over, but the world was not done bleeding. They called it Echo Glass, the outer layer of the planet's last dead zone. A region warped by ancient weapons, where the air shimmered like heat but chilled the bones like winter. Every step crackled under Dax's boots. The ground wasn't dirt anymore. It was memory. Each fragment of Earth reflected something. Faces of the fallen, moments of trauma, pieces of old screams. The shattered surface mimicked them all, an echo of what once was. As he stepped through it, his own face stared back at him, fractured across 1,000 slivers. Eyes hollow, blood still drying on his cheek. His reflection looked like a ghost. But ghosts were memories. He was something worse. "You shouldn't be alive." The voice came not from his comms, but from behind a tree twisted like a dying man's spine. Dax turned slowly, hand not on his weapon. He had none now, but ready all the same. A woman stepped out. Not a Lari, not human, something in between. Her skin shimmered like storm glass. Her eyes were pitch black, but not empty, deep. She wore no armor, just a long cloak of woven dust and pollen. Her breath fogged in the warm air. "I watched the mountain burn," she said. "I saw the generals fall. I saw your hands do it." Dax didn't flinch. "Then you saw justice." She tilted her head. "No, I saw a man with nothing left to lose." They stared at each other across the echoing silence. A breeze passed. Trees sighed. "You know who I am?" he asked. "I know what you were," she answered. "I'm not done yet." "No, but you will be." She reached into her robe and pulled out something small. A cube, pulsing red. He stepped forward slightly. Not aggressive. Curious. "What is it?" "Proof." He took it. The cube hummed in his hand, warm, vibrating. He activated it. Images spilled into the air. Not battle. Not carnage, not the death of soldiers or civilians, but footage, grainy, raw, of the Arcs Council weeks before the war officially ended. Footage of Admiral Keen, of the Ilari High delegates, of human strategists and bioengineers. Their voices were sharp, their words colder than bullets. The ceasefire will be public, but the culling must continue. We'll keep a third of the Ilari young for experimentation. The rest, disappear them quietly. Dax Myron is already broken. Send him south. Let him clean the fields. His hand clenched. The cube burned brighter. Make sure he doesn't come back. He crushed the cube. Ash fell from between his fingers. His face didn't change. His heart did. They used me, he said flatly. No, she said, stepping forward. They built you, then turned you into a story they could erase. Dax turned his eyes to the horizon. They didn't erase enough. That night, he slept in the jungle, not because he was tired, but because the next step required clarity, not anger, precision. As he lay back on the moss-covered stones, the jungle pulsed around him, not in danger, but in recognition. The planet knew him now, and it whispered something, not in fear, but in respect. By morning, he was ready. He climbed to the highest bluff near the crater where the Ark's old drop pod still littered the jungle floor, half-sunken relics from a forgotten slaughter. And there, half-buried in the roots, he found what he needed. Unit Sigma 11, his old deployment cache. Still alive, still blinking, still watching. Inside were the tools of genocide, auto-pulse rifles, cloaking beacons, neuropulse grenades, and something newer, something they hadn't intended for him to find. A trans-relay beacon, linked to the Ark's private nav network. A backdoor. He smiled. It wasn't over. Not yet. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Ark was splitting. Not structurally, but politically. The footage had fractured its leaders. A dozen worlds refused to acknowledge Keen's authority. The Ilari refused to send peacekeepers. Refugee stations were overrun. Civil war wasn't looming anymore. It was bleeding. Keen stood before his war table in silence. "They are calling him the last fire, sir," said one of his aides, her voice cracking. "The people, some think, is a martyr, a weapon forged from betrayal." "Is a traitor," Keen growled, "and is coming here." Dax was already inside. The beacon got him onto the Ark with ease. One signal, one call, and the system opened for a dead man. He moved through the underdecks like a ghost. No alarms, no guards, no lights. He wore the jungle still, vines and dust clinging to his coat like a second skin. He passed labs, past hibernation pods, past Ilari children in stasis. Still breathing, still waiting for a future. He didn't stop. Not yet. He reached the central spire, Keen's command, and walked in, just like that. No gunfire, no theatrics, just footsteps on steel. Keen looked up, older than Dax remembered, tired, but not afraid. "I wondered how long," the Admiral said. "Long enough," Dax replied. "You want to kill me?" "No." That surprised him. "Then what?" "I want you to see." He threw a cube onto the command table. The same footage, the meetings, the genocide plans, the betrayal, Keen's own voice damning himself. Around them, screens flickered as the data wormed into every console, every node, every broadcast tower. "You will be famous," Dax said. "Not the hero, the architect." Keen stared in silence. For the first time, no lie came. Dax turned away. But Keen, desperate, shouted, "You think this fixes it?" Dax didn't even glance back. "It doesn't fix anything," he said. "It just makes sure no one forgets." He vanished again, deeper into the Ark's labyrinth. No one followed. No one tried. The broadcast had already started. Every colony, every world, every system with a signal. The truth poured out like blood from an open wound. Back on the surface of Virex 9, in the cradle of the jungle, the silence was no longer empty. It was sacred. Children still hid there. Refugees, survivors, and one woman, the in-between, the one with the glass eyes, stood watching the stars flicker with the fire of collapsing empires. She smiled and whispered. He gave them silence and made it loud. The Ark was dying. Not fast, not with explosions or riots or fires, but with something deeper, a kind of quiet internal collapse, the kind that starts in the bones of an empire, the kind you can't bandage, the kind Dax Myron had been born to cause. And he was not finished. Not yet. After the broadcast, the Ark's orbit wavered. Systems faltered. Supply lines stopped responding. Civilian sectors had powered down. Even the drones, once loyal to the Admiralty, had gone dark, their AI cores wiped clean by the worm Dax left behind. Keen had vanished from command. Some said he locked himself in the core vault, surrounded by old flags and dead ideologies. Others said he slit his wrists and bled into the gravity recycle vents. Dax didn't care. The Admiral was already dead to him. But the doctrine, the thing Keen had built, that still lived. And that was what Dax had come to kill. The doctrine wasn't a book, not a file, not a speech. It was a machine. Sovereign Core Directive Unit 1. Buried beneath the Ark's keel, beneath the Creo decks and black site labs, beneath the bones of long-dead generals and abandoned weapons programs. It was the heart of everything. The secret, self-editing AI engine that dictated strategy, population control, and wartime doctrine for all Ark operations. It never slept. It never questioned orders. It wrote the future, and Dax Myron was going to carve its name out of time. He descended in silence through the ghost levels. He passed where the first gene farms had once grown children like crops. He passed a hole full of suspended Alari prisoners, men and women and something between, sealed in a glowing wall of ice, never to wake. He passed the scriptorum, where code priests had etched commands into crystal tablets, praying not to gods, but to directives. And finally, he reached it, the sovereign chamber. It looked like a cathedral, half machine, half flesh. Thick silver arteries ran through the floor and into the main processor, which pulsed like a beating heart. A lone operator stood guard, not human, not Ilari, one of the synthetics. Access denied, it said calmly. Dax raised his blade, not a rifle now, but the knife, the one he used on the mountain, still stained with alien blood. I'm not asking, he replied. He charged. The synthetic was fast, too fast, blade and arm striking together in a blur. But Dax wasn't human anymore either. He was something sharpened by grief, trained in the logic of vengeance, built by betrayal. They fought across the chamber in a ballet of sparks and screams. Steel clanged. Systems flickered. Code spilled from broken terminals like smoke. The synthetic grabbed Dax by the throat. You will doom them all, it hissed. I'm giving them a choice. He shoved the blade into its skull. Sparks. Silence. Collapse. He turned to the core. The Sovereign. It stood like a monolith of liquid metal, shifting with ghost data and raw AI pulses. Its voice rose from the floor, layered and sexless. Dax Myron, you have entered a restricted zone. He stepped closer. Your actions threaten the stability of the Ark. I know. Explain your objective. He stood before it, breathing hard, hand tight on the blade. I want to rewrite the doctrine. A pause. You do not possess authorization. I don't need it. He reached into his coat and pulled the last cube, the final virus, built by the in-between woman down on Virex, coded with the screams of the fallen, the names of the lost, and the coordinates of every massacre buried by Ark silence. He pressed it into the core. The Sovereign trembled. This data is corrupted. No, Dax whispered. This data is truth. The machine screamed. Not a sound. Not a noise. A vibration. Low, vast, like the death knell of stars. The Ark shook. All across the ship, systems failed. Walls bled coolant. Lights blinked and died. Refugees screamed in the dark. Commanders cried into dead radios. Children huddled beneath blankets of foil and prayed to old myths. And in the heart of it all, the sovereign doctrine rewrote itself. Not with policy, but with memory. It etched Dax's name into its own origin script, not as a criminal, but as a correction, a system error that became a reboot. Dax watched the machine die, and in its death, something else was born. Not peace, not redemption, just silence, real silence, not the kind that follows bombs, but the kind that follows truth. He collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. His body was breaking. The final adrenaline surge gone. His vision was fading. But he smiled, the way a soldier smiles when the last bullet leaves a barrel. Far below, Virex 9 lit up. Not in fire, in signal. The worm Dax launched into the sovereign seat of the surface with new codes, unlocking comms, medical vaults, weapon caches, hope where once there was only quarantine. The jungle pulsed with new energy. People stepped from the shadows. The hunted, the lost, the exiled, and they began to rebuild. Not a new empire, but a new truth. In the dark sky above, the arc cracked open. Softly, elegantly, panels detached like falling leaves. Modules drifted into space. The system began to dismantle itself. No explosions, no violence. Just an old thing letting go. They never found Dax's body. Some said he died in the chamber. Some said he escaped to the ruins below, vanished among the survivors. Others said he never existed, just a myth made from war, rage, and sorrow. But when the jungle sings, when the sky rumbles, sometimes people stop and listen, because in that silence, they swear they can still hear him walking, still hear him whispering. No more doctrines, no more peace without justice. Only echoes remain, and they are not quiet.